Aloha, everyone, and welcome to another great episode. Thank you for joining us this morning. And today we've got AI news from around the verse, including some updates from the whole Anthropic, OpenAI, DoD thing, including, and of course, since you see my face, an AI in science story that deals with tsunami modeling. So
Nice.
before we get to all of that, let me introduce Brian and Beth, and I am Jyunmi, and this is the Daily AI Show, episode 673. It's Wednesday, March 4th, 2026. All right. So let's get into the AI news.
Mhm.
Brian, what's the bit of news that struck you this week?
Well, I mean, this is more or less an ongoing story. Now, we've been talking about it several shows in a row. I think even starting on Friday. So this is like the third or fourth show. But it is a big deal, right? The ongoing situation, not situation, the ongoing story about obviously Anthropic, but then what felt like on Friday, OpenAI being very very quick to rush in and say we've secured a contract with Department of War, and then it was admittedly confusing to me because when they laid out the agreement to it, I was like, that's exactly but what just Anthropic said no. Like they're mad at them for, and it didn't make any damn sense. And I think a lot of people sort of felt that way. And then this wasn't yesterday, but I only heard about it this morning because I was reading the rundown. I think it was. Let me just make sure I give credit. Yep, the Rundown AI newsletter, and it was talking about this. Where'd it go? I had it. There it is. This post from Sam. I guess this was, to be clear, this was 8:15 p.m. on March 2nd. So not yesterday, but the day before. But I just missed it yesterday when we were talking about it. So he further outlines this and says, like, look, if I get to the meat of it, one thing I think I did wrong, excuse me. We shouldn't have rushed to get this out on Friday. The issues are super complex and demand clear communication. We are genuinely trying, we were genuinely trying to de-escalate things and avoid as much worse. Don't know why I can't talk and avoid a much worse outcome. But I think it just looked opportunistic. Yeah, it did. And sloppy. Also true. Good learning experience for me as we face higher stakes decisions in the future. And I also want to call out the part where he says, in my conversations over the weekend, I reiterated that Anthropic should not be designated as an SCR and that we hope that the Department of War offers them the same terms we've agreed to. Okay, so there you go. But look, there's like protesters outside their gate. I'm not saying people are there with pitchforks, but they have protesters. There are more than enough data now saying how many people have left ChatGPT. So it is a real thing. He's right to be discussing it. He said he's going to have some more open like town halls about this or whatever. I skipped over the part where he outlines where they, further refined the language of their agreement. I'm not quite sure how you do that if it's already, like if you've already said it's signed. It's weird to me. I'll tell you that this is my wrap up of this, and then we talk about it more, whatever you guys want to do. But here's what's weird to me. Like, okay, the Anthropic thing, yep, we knew the government was going to react strongly and call them everything but a damn terrorist, and unpatriotic and la 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 la. Like, I don't give a what about that. I think it's ridiculous. But that's what we get for this administration. So fine, okay. So like Anthropic's doing their thing and standing by standing by what they believe is the right answer here. And yep, they're going to take some lumps to it, but in goodwill outside of that, they're actually we're doing strong this year, and this is what appears to be a good bump for them. They're actually seeing positive out of this, right? So the PR spin for them is great. Obviously, OpenAI seemingly swooping in and trying to de-escalate didn't feel like that. I think a lot of us now know this. Sam is saying, yep, I was probably wrong and this felt sloppy. Yep, agreed. This is a weird way to push this on Friday. It could have been definitely something they talked about this week instead of feeling like it was jumping over the top. But ultimately, what I get out of this is in this scenario, the folks at the Department of War and all those involved are very, very open and easy to work with from OpenAI. And Sam talks about how like we're just mutually working at this together. And I do want government to be in charge of these things. However, we know our models. And I'm like, that's what Dario said. He said that in interviews. And so I don't know where it is other than the administration just decided that they were upset at Anthropic and hell be damned, right? I mean, like it is what it is, and there was no finessing that was going to happen. It was just nope, black and white. You don't support the government. That's how we're gonna spin this. Blah blah blah. Of course, I don't know what happened behind closed doors, but now there seems to be this whole collaboration thing going on with OpenAI. Jimmy. It just generally doesn't make sense to me, and that's where I'm at as like just a viewer of this from
Mhm.
not being involved whatsoever. It's like it just doesn't make sense. Like what in the hell's going on? But good to see Sam go. This is a learning experience. We stepped in it a bit. I think we could have done this better. You know?
Yeah, yeah. I think that's where a lot of the confusion comes from. And you laid it out. It's you know, Anthropic says, hey no. DoD says, okay, then fine. Then we don't want it. And OpenAI says, we'll go in there, but with the same thing that Anthropic says.
Yeah.
So there's gotta be there is some lines in between lines that that need to be resolved.
Well, and there were, right? Like the published language of the contracts were different, right? Lawyers saying, "Oh yeah, no, Anthropic tried to tighten it up, and OpenAI said same thing with like mile wide. You could drive whatever you wanted through that." But there are a couple backstories that are part of this that I want to bring in. But Jyunmi, if you want to make a comment.
Well, I was just going to say that to go into a little more detail on what's developed, and maybe some of the things that need to be highlighted. And this couple of things might be what you want to bring up, Beth, is number one, the designation of the security risk is
supply chain risk.
Far more impactful than just losing a contract. And that's that's, I think, the key people that or key thing that people are latching onto. And then the open letter from the tech community, tech workers community, to say, don't do this. It's going to have a way farther reaching impact than simply, trying to state that you no longer want to do business with this company. Because one of the points that Nathaniel Whittemore from AI Daily Brief pointed out in his breakdown was that this will cascade into issues with anyone doing business with Anthropic. And that's an entire litany of major enterprise and nearly all the other AI related companies out there, including any company that's serving compute. So that far reaching, really shakes up the web of AI manufacturers and AI providers and compute providers and things like that. So I think that's kind of where the industry is focusing. It's like, okay, fine. OpenAI won that contract, whatever means, whatever the dust will settle through that process, but please don't cut us off at the knees because of this designation. And I think that's one of the highlights that at least the tech circles have been focusing on.
And it's the sort of thing that, because of the decision structure, the Pentagon can just make that decision, right? So there's not input, and it'll be interesting to look at, because Secretary Hegseth and President Trump are not the kind of people who typically take feedback and say, oh, it's more nuanced than I thought. You're right. I will do something about this. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. Yes, it's a much more serious situation. What I was asking over the weekend was like, is this a thing if they tweet it? Right? Like, did this decision actually get made? Because often what we see is that policy by tweet or whatever it's called on Truth Social or wherever people are posting isn't actually official policy until it's communicated in a different way.
Sure.
And this was communicated in the way that it needed to be communicated. So Something that happened right before this was that enterprise spending on Claude overtook enterprise spending on OpenAI or
which I would have thought was
ChatGPT.
already higher, honestly.
It comes from a story from Ramp tracks corporate cards at 50,000 plus companies. And their data shows that Claude had gone from under 30% to roughly half of US business spend, AI subscription spend. And that's that's enterprise dollars. It's a representation, but that all spilled over. That was news that was reported prior to this weekend, when we know that some spending, some people cut their subscriptions to ChatGPT and took out subscriptions to Claude. So that is an interesting, like, little piece. But you're right. If the supply chain risk stands, there will be second action consequences from it. Like, this number will shift because if you're doing business with with someone that the US government thinks is a supply chain risk, it creates a risk for you as well.
Ultimately, what I'll say here is I think at least this is all not happening behind all closed doors. Like, this is somewhat happening out in public, and good or bad or indifferent or who gets affected. Like, it is bringing the conversation up. We've now talked about it on this show no less than 3 to 4 days in a row. That's actually a big deal on our show. Like, I can't think of too many other news stories other than Sam being outed and that whole thing over right? Thanksgiving of 2023 of us like being like, ooh, will he, won't he? And then there was the Thanksgiving break and it was crazy and he was reinstated, right? Like, we talked about that because it was a big deal. I don't really remember us talking about something, a particular news story. And I guess this one sort of morphed into more than just one news story, of course, because there's the Anthropic side in the OpenAI. What I'll say, though, is that I am glad that people are having conversations about this. Anne was actually just in our comments saying she was glad we're talking about this. And, it's something that she's tracking closely. Yesterday on the show, she talked about how this is something that in her community, she leads AI, that people are absolutely saying they're going to walk away from ChatGPT. That's a real thing that's happening. There's nobody, I don't think anybody should be, I'm not saying we are, obviously, but hopefully nobody is debating that. There's now statistics out on people shifting, whatever. But like we talked yesterday, is it temporary? Will the next greatest shebang thing come out and, whiz bang thing come out with OpenAI and people swerve back because it's too good to not be, in the bubble? I don't know. There's all that. But ultimately, here we are talking about surveillance of U.S. citizens. We're talking about AI-enabled weaponry that does not have human involvement. And these are big discussions, and I'm just frankly glad that we're having them. I don't know that I would have chosen this method, but at least we're having them. And there's people saying, hey, the U.S. citizens, at least for being in the States, obviously, are saying, hey, we care about this. This matters to us, and either we're reacting with our wallets, or we're reacting through protests or whatever. And honestly, that's exactly what you would hope would happen, so that's all. I know we could talk about this like for the rest of the show, honestly, but like that's where I'm at on it. Is I'm glad this is at least happening seemingly out in the open. And the only other thing I'll say is, like, I really do try not to stay political on this, but obviously our current leaders in the U.S. government are vengeful, and it does remind me, with the whole thing of like basically considering Anthropic a risk. There's really zero reason to do that based on it. Okay, they don't want the contract. They want to wipe them or pull them all away. Great, do it. Don't use them for any government stuff. Labeling them as a security risk or a safety risk and affecting downwind business is just petty in my mind. And it reminds me of like the Lance Armstrong story. I know that sounds bizarre, but it's what comes to my head. Because like when you look at the whole Lance Armstrong and cheating and whatever your opinions are on that, like he was vengeful. Like he didn't just go out of his way to say, I'm not cheating and try to protect it. He went about suing other people's families and ruining their lives too along the way. And there's documentaries about this and all that. Like, that's another level, right? There's one thing to be affected and say, you know, you don't love the government, whatever. We're gonna PR spin this or that. It's quite another to say we're now gonna actively go after your business and try to hurt you financially because of this. I don't understand that. I don't understand what the reason is for that. What does that solve? I don't get it. You know, that's just where I am on it. I know it's more complicated than that, but come on. What are we doing? You know, I don't get it.
True.
Yes. Also not out of expected behavior necessarily. Like, there are flags that would show that this might be a path that those folks would take. What the other story that I want to get into, and this may play out over a couple days as well, but The Guardian has a really great article about the technology that's actually behind all of this. And this morning, Secretary Hegseth, in a quote, the reporter said, "Are there any so-called fully autonomous weapons or other AI tools being used in Operation Epic Fury?" And Secretary Hegseth said, "We've got a lot of autonomous systems, drones and others, incorporated with smart AI aspects to them, but a lot of which I can't talk about here." And there is a former way that military used to decide on targets, right? And it was called a kill chain. And the kill chain, hang on, let me grab my notes. The kill chain is F2T2EA. Sorry. There we go. Find, there we go. Find, fix, track, target, engage, and assess. And that chain was linear, right? And each step needs to happen in sequence, right? It's not, you can't track before you fix, find all the things. And that used to take hours or days when intelligence would bring that in. What AI has done is totally collapsed that and made it possible for the find information, the sensor data to come in from multiple sources all at once and be able to then create what is now called a kill web. And kill web allows the opportunity to make decisions that are faster than a human speed of thought. And that is what's sort of, I'm simplifying it, but that's behind the, hey, let's all take a pause here and see how fast this is going. And is Anthropic's AI putting a red line at, like, nope, this goes really, really quick. And part of why it's a challenge is that if you're using faster than the speed of human thought and your opponent is also using faster than the speed of thought, that can escalate really rapidly. And I think part of why we're not seeing it is because Iran does not have the equivalent weapons, right? Like, they don't have technology that works faster than the speed of thought. And there's a lot deeper. Project Maven military project has been something that the military was running in 2017, right? And that's the large language model about, like, with military content in it. So a large language model specifically for military. They started that in 2017, and then there have just been, like, building blocks on top of it, and that's what we're seeing now. So big deal, Sam swooping in, doing the thing, but there's, like, real consequential and deeper concepts in this that are information. And tomorrow or Friday, I will show. There was I'm not ready to talk about it really, but there is a really cool or totally terrifying piece of software that was built with AI, right? Like, vibe coded, that actually could see the satellites gather in coordination with the strikes and identify the individual satellites that were tracking it. Because there's like a ridiculous amount of information that is public, and then also the power to be able to put that into a visual model, because it's all like you can see the video satellite, the video of that. Yeah, okay. Come back tomorrow.
Yeah,
listen, it's all fascinating.
Yeah, that is a lot of layers and depth there to analyze. Then yes, I'm very curious about that project. And you bring up a good point. There's public information and publicly aware information. Because I had no idea that satellite information was readily available. You got to know what to look for, right? That kind of thing.
And know how to tease it out, right? I mean, what everyone's talking about in terms of this project that I'm referencing is like, wow, this is the kind of thing that governments have, right? But usually not individuals. Again, just because the amount of data and the ability to analyze it used to be a gate kept by governments.
Yeah, because
the governments right?
Yeah.
And now the cost of intelligence is heading to zero.
Yep.
Okay. Well, there's probably a good point to leave on that happy note another story so that we cover at least a couple more. Before we jump in, well, I guess the next story isn't quite a story yet, but I'm excited to see both that there is significant coverage, and I think there's something to discuss there. And the fact that a open source model has reached a level of discussion importance that now we're trying to foresee when it comes out. And that's DeepSeek V4. So the latest news over the last couple of days is it's supposed to come out in the first week of March, right? So that could be today, in fact. But I've never seen. So the thing that made me pause was I've never seen that for a open source model, right? It's probably more to do with the past, where they were able to their narrative of it was so much cheaper to create. It's a Chinese model. There's backing behind it, or those kinds of things, to put in the same realm of news cycle as, oh, there's a new OpenAI ChatGPT coming out, or there's a new Claude version coming out, or a new Gemini, those kinds of things. So not so much that V4 is, and everything they've talked about it, of course, is it's going to be the next level of frontier model, and all those normal hype cycle things. But the idea that it's important enough, even as an open source model, to get that kind of recognition and discussion, and that's the kind of thing that that brought it to my view. Just a couple bits of information on the back end. DeepSeek V4 is supposed to be a trillion parameter mixture of experts model. And one of the things that have come out in these recent models for efficiencies is the active parameter chunk, so to speak, at any given time. And that's like the 32 billion parameters. It's natively multimodal, text, image, video, and audio. It's got a million token context window. It's expected to release as an open source model, and it's supposed to coincide apparently with this 2 sessions concept in China, which I don't know too much about, but that's supposed to be that's supposed to hit the hype wave for China as well. So this is like a major foundational model release over here, but for China and the open source community. So it'll be interesting to see what comes out of it once it does launch and is tested in real world applications. But I think it's significant that there is an open source contender. And I think while it might be considered from a somewhat adversarial source, it's still released in the open source community so that you can get more eyeballs on it and see how it actually performs in real world applications. Okay. So does anybody have any other news that they wanted to cover?
Oh, yeah, so much. But I want to comment on the million context window because I think we are seeing more and more of that. 5.4 is rumored and been confirmed that 5.4 exists from OpenAI. I think somebody from OpenAI tweeted 5.4 sooner than you think. Now, right? For the people who brought you Sora, an advanced voice, who don't necessarily experience time and drops the same way the rest of us do when we're looking for them, we don't know what soon means. But it has been confirmed as a model, and the rumor around it is that it has 2 million context. And I'm forgetting the word, but basically consistency, like it will remember across, it has better memory, it will remember what you talked about across conversations. And they've been like improving toward that, but this is the first time that I've seen like the phrase, yes, definitely it will remember. And yeah. So
that's kind of the big selling point, right? You could say 1 million, 2 million, but if you don't remember everything within that context window, it's not as important. So if they're saying 99.999% memory rate over 1 million context, then that's pretty good.
And I want to know, I really want to understand what is the pricing behind that as well, because Claude Sonnet 4.6 and Claude Sonnet Opus 4.6 dropped with 1 million context windows. But when you go to them, there's a little thing that says, hey, not only is this priced higher, right? But my max subscription doesn't cover that. If I choose the 1 million context window, that price comes out of the outside of subscription money that we put in for the overage. Right? That's considered overage if you want the 1 million context window. And so I think most people would be in a situation like I am, like, okay, I'm hitting the 200,000 context window, and I want you to give me a little more space. I want you to, like, don't compact here. Right? Can I just get a little bit more? But is that worth the $50 or the whatever it is going to be? Because of course, as we know, the context window, like the pricing is given to you in 1 million tokens, which I sort of go, oh, 1 million tokens. I don't know what that means. But now we're talking about 1 million context window. I totally know what that means. It means if I want you to remember 1 million tokens, that cost me $37.50 or whatever it costs. And like going back and forth about that, am I more interested in a refined memory than a totally comprehensive memory?
Yeah. And I mean, 1 million tokens should be roughly 750,000 words, if I remember the conversion right. And I would have to go look and see what 750,000 words is. But I feel like when we looked at this earlier on, that is like the entire Harry Potter series. If I'm not mistaken, I might be wrong on that. I can go look really quick and see how many words Harry Potter is. I'm sure that's a quick.
I mean, it's 500 to 600 per page, right? So, yeah, I think
words per page.
Yeah, it's about 500 to 600 per standard page. So, yeah, I guess that. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So, like, and so anyway, just because like what you were saying, Beth, like, all right, it's 1 million, but like, if it was truly live memory context. And you could wrap your head around and go, okay, I know I'm working with a tool and it has the ability to find a needle in a haystack and have perfect semantic vectorized RAG, whatever you want to call it, memory. It won't forget, right? Of an entire series of Harry Potter. You can, even if I never read the books. I know there's a lot of them. I know there's 7 books or something. I know it's a lot.
You never read the books?
No, I never read the books. My wife and daughter did, but I never did.
And you don't have a dog. I do not know.
That's a lot of reading, Beth. I've seen the movies. What I remember of that was squirrel on this. What I remember that is when my daughter was little. She was littler though. She was watching Harry Potter, and there's a scene in one of them where mermaids are pulling people down in the water. And my daughter was like probably like 5 or 6 or something like that. And she literally stood up in a room and said, "Nope, I don't like bad mermaids," and walked out of the room. And that's where she ended her Harry Potter experience at that age. I mean, she went back later in her teenage years and watched it, but it's stuck in my head of my daughter, my little kid standing up and declaring bad mermaids were not okay with her, and she left the room, and it just made me laugh. So anyway, I'll go find the answer to that, by the way. But
I did while you were talking.
Okay.
It's the Harry Potter books, the full Harry Potter books are about 1,084,170 words.
Okay, so we're close. We're probably close.
That's larger. It would be because tokens are tokens, not words. So about 750,000 words. But
so maybe one less book.
Yeah.
Maybe almost all the books, right? It's still a lot. And the question comes back to is, what are we talking about? Is it the needle and haystack experience? Because my point to all that is exactly what you're saying, Beth. If I can wrap my head around that, and it's not some just obscure 1 million tokens thing, and I can say, yes, I will trade my $50 per month for the right to have near perfect memory for almost the entire Harry Potter series. You can literally visualize that and visualize those books sitting on a shelf and going, "Oh, I have the power here on this project. I have this contextual memory power here to point to any word on any page and have it understand exactly what's going on with context and semantic reasoning, right, for the rest of it." Okay, shit, that's a lot. That's a lot. I can do a lot with that. So you're right. I wish there was a little bit more clarity around this. And this is like the best we can kind of do here, is to put this down. I'm not surprised to see people start talking about Harry Potter in the comments, though. I figured the minute I said it, people start talking about it and stuff. Jyunmi, I do have a really quick one that I wanted to bring up. And this is really Beth, Jyunmi, I don't know. Do you guys know? I had this rando thought this morning that I had not heard anything from Midjourney in quite some time. And I thought, I bet you that's just because I'm not in it, but also weirdly not on the news sources that I read them every morning. And I'm like, I don't see anything about Midjourney. So I literally went to Midjourney's updates log and then threw Gemini on it really quickly. This is not even like a Today news story. This is just a Brian Curiosity news story. What in the hell is Midjourney doing? In case anybody hasn't been using them, they used to be like the talk of the town. They're working really closely on getting model V8 out, which is a fun name. Beth is like, yes, I know these things. So Beth, jump in. They're doing a strong focus on typography for this specific round. I did not realize they moved into video, but that makes total sense to me. They did it in 2025. Right now, it looks like it's 720p. They removed something called Rooms, which I guess was just a low use thing. Not surprisingly, they've moved and worked really hard to move off of Discord and really get everything on the website. I don't even know why it's taken this long to do that. They're now having things like mood boards, which is kind of a cool idea. Omni-reference. I'm kind of going back here, and some other stuff as well. So Beth, if you or Jyunmi, if you guys are using Midjourney, Beth, you're kind of the one person I know that, has used it in the past. Midjourney good? Midjourney, where's Midjourney right now? I don't get why we haven't been hearing about them.
Midjourney's good. Why we haven't been hearing about them is that they're not necessarily significantly better than the AI generated images that you get with ChatGPT, right? Or so it turned into something that didn't necessarily need another subscription unless you had really invested in it, right? Because what Karl talks about in terms of OpenAI, he doesn't think he could leave OpenAI because it's like his memory is there and it works really well for him. So people who did that work with Midjourney now are getting much better images still out of that than they're getting from Nano Banana 2. But if you didn't do that, and you're just prompting back and forth, it's very likely that Nano Banana 2 is making you happy in Gemini and whatever OpenAI's image model is called. I don't remember. But It's
Image.
not. Is it really?
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
Very original. I mean, how can you?
We will name it computer. Great
Right,
job.
right.
You nailed it.
But aren't those people? Aren't they all like super into getting found in search now? Computer. What are you doing?
Listen, Integra and Matt changed their name to Make and ruined everybody's life. I'll never forgive them.
Well,
Learn from others.
Yeah, there was a really interesting point that you made, Beth, about Karl, saying about Karl not being able to divest. Now, it's interesting because I did come across a smaller Anthropic story where they have come out with a prompt process to assist in that removal from other models or other platforms like ChatGPT and Gemini and whatnot. And it's pretty minimal effort that say, here's the prompt that you need to give that model, and it'll collect the information for you, and here's where you can put it in so that you can transfer all of that that knowledge or background context into Claude. And I thought that was I found it amusing, and it might be another jab. They do tend to be a little what's the word I'm looking for? They tend to be a little cheeky when it comes to how they do their marketing, as as seen by the Super Bowl ad. But having a little Claude process to move your memory or information from one model into another, I think there might be something to build out there, something with a little more involved process, because there's also a way to download all your data and all of your conversations and things like that. So that sounds like a job for OpenClaw. So it'd be interesting if someone's already got a nice little skill out there that we can plug into our process and just move our data and be more data independent, so that we can be more platform agnostic and move to whatever we need at any time.
Anne said that she's rich because she's getting rid of all the subscriptions. But I am in a point where I am assessing whether I can build the 3 features that I use this subscription for in Claude Code using an API, right?
Yeah.
And also because you move them to another drop-down menu, like just leave the feature where it was, call it the same thing, don't put it under a million things, and then let me just access the pieces that are useful for me.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I think it's something I need to I need to do this as well. I was looking and I'm like, oh, okay, I pay for Perplexity every year. That's fine. Could I get away with not having Perplexity right now? Probably, honestly. And then I'm using Claude Code more, but what are this one over here? We use, Adobe to clean up the audio after this show. It does such a damn good job though. At $10 a month, it's hard for me to justify finding a solution for it, but I'm sure there is one. Whisper or something that probably could clean it up I could probably build something through Claude Code, but it's like $10 a month. It's like, oh, okay. But it just does it.
That's
it just
does
it,
right?
It's so easy.
Yeah. Well, as the tech gets better, right? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, sorry. I'm gonna say, and the $10 a month is you already downsizing. Now you didn't subscribe to the ridiculously priced full cloud
Adobe. Oh yeah, no.
Creative, whatever it's called.
Yeah.
And did the $10 a month. Right?
Yeah, this is literally Adobe Podcast. Thank God it's only $10 a month. And I think it does more things, perfectly honest. I literally just drag and look, yes, for anybody listening to this going, Brian, couldn't you just, when you download the audio from StreamYard, couldn't you have Claude Code pick that up and go process it and put it where you want? Yes, you're probably right. I agree. This could be handled some other way. I could probably get rid of this $10 cost. But it is funny where you start to go, Well, is that the first one I'm gonna take a bite at? No, I'm gonna take a bite at the $50 cost ones or the whatever. Like the $10 are like, it's like when you're trying to pay off credit card debt. Don't. Well, that's the opposite. You do pay off the smaller ones first, so that's reverse. Anyway, I was just thinking about that. I was like, nope, that is the opposite. Okay, because I'm going to jump here, but I do. Can I share one more news story real quick, and I'll let you guys go. GPT 5.3, back to OpenAI, Instant came out. And I kind of thought this was like a nothing burger, but honestly, I just saw an example of 5.2 to 5.3 next to each other. And I thought, oh, GPT does this to me all the time. And it drives me nuts. So I'm going to pull it up on screen really quick. And if 5.3 Instant fixed this for me, I'm actually going to be really excited about this. So I went from, okay, whatever, to this. And this is the side by side. Now, in this example, in 5.2, Instant on the side, which is, by the way, the model most of us are using when we're just conversing with ChatGPT. So this is a big deal. It is an upgrade. What right here? I can't highlight this guy right here. That guy right there. 5.2.
What does it say?
Okay, I'm going to tell you, it drives me nuts with this is a version of it. But what it does to me is here's what I'm going to do. Here's my plan. Here's what I can do for you. I'm going to do bop, 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 bop. It does this to me inside custom GPTs for the Daily I Show. Drives me nuts. And so in this case, like what it's saying is like, I can help you with this physics and math problem, but I can't help with the calculations. There's step-by-step guidance. I goes on and on. Here are a few ways I can help. You can pick whichever matches, whatever you're doing, blah, blah, blah. 5.3. Yep, I can help with that. For a very long distance archery trajectory, we can model the arrow as a projectile under gravity. And then immediately it's like, here's the parameters. And I don't know if this will translate over to what I have been experiencing. And I don't even know that I necessarily like formalized it in my head until I saw that example. And I was like, that I hate that. So sometimes it has to be called out. And then you're like, I don't like that it does that. So I do often get that where it's absolutely something I know ChatGPT can do. These are not like I'm not asking for physics. It's literally repetitive jobs, right? And I find that 5.2 will sometimes be like pontificate about it. And then it'll give me this 5-part plan of how it's going to handle them. Like, I'll be honest, my answer usually is just bleep, bleep, do it. And it goes, oh, yeah, okay, I'll just do it for you. I'm like, oh, how did we get here? So if 5.3 takes care of that, some of like what it says in the blog here is like it pushing back a little bit instead of just doing the work, that actually will be very nice. And I'll know pretty quickly. I'll know by the newsletter this weekend or by this weekend whether it actually is making a difference. Because I would imagine 5.3, is it the default? It should, I would imagine, right? Let me go to a new chat here. No, actually, it says 5.2 is the auto. Huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because 5.2 is just out. Yeah. But the other thing, if you look in your legacy models, it says that the legacy models, there are 2 legacy models that are here until March 11th. So there's a question about whether what is dropping around then. Maybe that's 5.4. Who knows?
Oh, I see.
Why don't I just have 5.3? I don't know.
Moving it along the production line there.
Yeah.
Oh, there it is. I had a refresh. I do have 5.3 as the instant. Thank you. Okay. I do have it.
Okay.
Cool. All righty.
When in doubt, refresh. How long has that window been open?
There's a couple tech rules out there.
Jeez, you would think that'd be the first thing.
Refresh the website and turn it on and off again. Just saying.
Perplexity also.
In 2026, Jimmy, how much that freaking works. By the way, I have to do that. Do you guys have to do this with Claude Code all the time? I have to do this on my Windows. I'm using the desktop, but when Claude says close it and reopen it, I have to go to my task manager and force close.
Oh, wow.
In the task manager, it'll say 13 things that Claude is doing. I mean, I'm only looking at Claude Code, but there's like 13 subtasks. I have to force close all tasks, then reopen Claude. For like this morning, I was dealing with the MCP for N8N for that to trigger, or last night when I was teaching about skills for the new skill to trigger. It's super annoying. But when you close Claude on Windows from the desktop, it doesn't actually close. So you have to force quit it and then go back in and do it. Anyway, just don't know if anybody else has to deal with that, but that's super annoying.
It would make sense to me, but I'm using Claude mostly on Mac now, so I don't know. And I wouldn't
or
even
the
know.
CLI too, right? I mean, you're not necessarily in the desktop,
no,
right?
I'm using CLI on Mac. Yes, I'm as deep in the rabbit hole as that's probably not true. I would be using it on Linux, right? Unix. If I were super rabbit holing. A follow up to our 1 million context window conversation. Perplexity would like to remind us all that the context window includes the response as well. So we could have almost all the Harry Potter books, but then we would not be able to talk about them in any way because we've used the 1 million context window.
Right. Yeah.
When you're thinking about whether you've used the window or put stuff in, it includes what they said back to you.
Right.
Yeah. Well, that goes back to our merch idea, which, by the way, where's the merch? I thought Greg was going to do this and sell this to us from yesterday. Jyunmi made great merch ideas, and I feel like not Greg.
Yeah, you're giving Greg credit for Gareth.
Gareth said it. Sorry, guys, I've done that before. Not Greg. Gareth said, like, I could do this. I'll do this now. I'll put up an Epsi shot. I don't know. I feel like Ann said he was going to do it. And no, I don't see any mugs. I don't see anybody. Greg is like, wait, what?
What did I say?
And Greg is like, what did I say? Greg, you told us you were going to make some mugs with some wording on them for us. And I don't know why you haven't done it yet, honestly. I'm trying to say, Greg. No. Anyway, it goes back to yesterday, Jyunmi, we had a quick joke about saying that we needed some mugs or t-shirts that said I can't remember what I said, Beth, but it was like, the mug says something like, I'm going to go ahead and have to compact this conversation. Or a t-shirt that
yes.
What was the other rate limited? You've been rate limited?
Yes.
Sorry, you've been rate limited? And just have a t-shirt that says it, because Beth was saying, like, in an elevator of 12 people, you'd have one person be like, ah.
That's all you need, though. That's all you need.
Yeah, and you would know they were your tribe. You'd find them immediately because they would laugh at your stupid shirt. Yeah.
Because on a side note, I would love a DAS version of this mug, by the way. So, Gareth, if you're looking at it, let me know.
Yeah.
We would all.
Is that brass? What's the mug made out of?
It is made of aluminum, but it's a double-walled mug. So it keeps cold things cold and hot things hot.
All right, you heard it.
Several hours. So
and
we're basically creating more work for Gareth here.
How much does it hold?
16 ounces, I think, or no, 20.
Yeah.
And I love that Ann jumped in and said Greg was doing it too. Ann's like, yeah, Greg was doing it. So I'm sorry, Greg, it's you. I'm sorry. We decided it's you, Greg. It's right up your wheelhouse. So anyway, sorry.
Brian,
didn't mean to get it off
Brian's
track.
T-shirt was started with "I am listening," but you've been compacted or something like. No, really, I am listening. I
can't remember what I said yesterday. Thank God we have these all recorded, right? I can always go find it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, here's what I'll do. I will mock something up for a joke and I will put it in the newsletter this weekend. So at least there's something for it or whatever as a
pre-sale. If there's interest.
Yeah. Sure. You can tell us in the comments if you're itching to buy a Daily AI Show mug that says this on it.
That'd be great.
All right.
Okay. Well, as we wrap up the news, and I'll throw it to both of you.
We wrap up the news at the 48-minute mark.
Yep. That's kind of where it's working out here. I do have a story that might be not as covered, but something called PsychAdapter. So essentially, the big thing is this PsychAdapter. It mirrors a human personality with 98% accuracy. So researchers have developed something. Researchers have developed a system that can fine-tune a large language model to reflect specific personality traits and mental health conditions. And it works with a 98.7% accuracy. Now, what's interesting is it works by fine-tuning any existing model. Some of the research was done on older models like GPT-2, Llama 3, and Gemma to exhibit specific levels of the big five personality traits: openness, consciousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. Wow. Okay. It can also be tuned to reflect patterns associated with mental health conditions. And this being able to mirror raises a few questions about how well it could work in mental health research, including like training simulations for therapists, and then of course personalized AI assistants that will adapt communication styles for your to help better mirror your own mental status. So what's exciting to me is this offers the more for lack of a better term, human side of things, right? Because you're able to communicate and be reacted to and adapted and adjusted in your communication so that you can get a deeper understanding, maybe easier communications, and that might give the jumping off point for attending to more mental health issues or the identification of mental health issues. I think the training idea is probably that first part where they'll experiment with, but some interesting stuff, especially fine tuning older models for that specific task. Did you guys talk about the Sakana breakthroughs the last couple of days?
No, and they are amazing. Like it's so good. Yes, please.
Yes, like so the doc to Laura and what was the other one? Laura, something else to Laura.
I'll find it. You talk.
Okay, awesome. So Sakana, everyone, and I didn't really actually plan to talk about this. I figured it would already been talked about the last couple of days, but they've come up with a way to actively and essentially near instantly update the knowledge of a model through the introduction of your docs, your files, and things like that. So this differs from RAG because RAG sort of has this pool of knowledge that your model then draws from and is able to pull out snippets from and things like that. This is sort of like a super efficient fine tuning to the model itself, and it can be done in just a couple seconds. So, you can take your your corpus of information, and as that corpus changes, you can have it as part of the process to introduce into your model. And this is a huge jump or a huge bridge between building a model around a certain data set and then being able to update that model with new knowledge. That's essentially what it does. And when I saw that blew my mind. I'm like, if anything, Sakana is the lab that is about advancing the application of models where they don't necessarily are building new ones, but if you want to take what you have and make it better or more efficient, that's kind of where their jam is. So we've seen it with their merge process, where they're able to merge multiple models, extract the best pieces of what they're really good at, and then come out with a whole new model out of that, who's good at those, best things that the other models were good at. And now this is that next step of here's a process to take an existing model that you have and increase its knowledge, update its knowledge. And the key thing is that it can be done in seconds. So it does. Yeah.
It took a long time for me to find it because Sakana is growing. So the top 7 links of the expos are like, hey, we're hiring software engineers. Hey, we're hiring these people. The last one I saw was, hey, we're hiring an office assistant, which then means like stuff is growing and now we need like the support layers underneath. I posted the link in the chat to the article that Jyunmi is talking about. I will post it in the community Slack as well. It is pub.sakana.ai, and it's doc to Laura. And Jyunmi, it's doc to Laura and text to Laura. Those were the
Text to Laura.
two.
That was the other one, right?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And
Yeah.
what I love about it is that it feels like what we're seeing the benefit of is Japanese culture based on the environment that Japan lives in, right? Like
Mhm.
it efficiency is just part of the zeitgeist because you have people in a small space. Like it's just part of what has happened in a way that the American West doesn't have that, right? For
Mhm.
the same reason. There's just few people, lot of space. And so the perspective of it is just really different. And I feel like we have seen Sakana just be finding these pieces, like it looks like an imagination thing, like, what if we did this, right? The way that we found Sakana is the model merge, right? Like,
Mhm.
hey, I wonder if we merge two models, what we'd get. Certainly other people had that idea, right? But they had the interest enough and the wisdom enough to pursue it in a way that then became a paper, that then became all those things. And what is the company? Is it Google that they developed the relationship with just recently? I think
I'm
so.
not. Yeah. Oh, that makes
I think
sense.
they're a Google partner now. They're
Well,
I
it would make sense for Google. It's like,
yes.
oh, look at that. Support a lab to develop their own thing. And then, of course, we get first dibs when we need to integrate it with our own stuff. Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. We've got billions. Here you go.
And
Yeah.
I'm trying to think who else it would have been, because it's not OpenAI and it's not Anthropic. And so it's not Grok
Yeah, and it
or
definitely
Meta.
it wouldn't have been Meta, or
So,
Microsoft. So yeah.
yeah, very
Maybe
exciting.
Microsoft, but yeah. Yeah, yeah, so two stories in one, I guess. But
Sorry.
No. The Sakana thing, I just didn't plan to bring it up because I could have sworn, like when I read it a couple days ago, I was just like, that's huge. And this is something that I can implement myself. Another
Right.
piece, I guess, is that reminds me of when you were saying, or when Brian was saying about, oh, I haven't heard anything from Midjourney. I hadn't heard anything from Perplexity, but they dropped a couple new text embedding models as well.
Mhm.
And this is specifically to tie into their search process and things like that. So Perplexity is still really good on the web search, but there's these ebbs and flows of what are coming out of these companies, and we just seem to sort of the news cycle seems to just be Anthropic and OpenAI and Google, and Meta, and then occasionally a Microsoft, but it seems to just orbit around those four or five companies, really.
Gareth is saying, this is why we need you, because the regular hosts are not bringing the stories. We saw it, but yes, the other stories seem to have pushed out. So it's so good that you come in with like, hey, this is the important story that I saw. I love that.
So before we move on to the second segment of the show, 58 minutes in, is there anything else that you want to cover?
No, I'm good.
All right, everybody. Thank you for sticking around for so long. So now it's time for AI in science.
Science.
All right. So we are talking about AI-powered digital twins for real-time tsunami early warning. All right. So I want to take you into a story where AI isn't generating text or images, but saving lives. So a team led by researchers at UT Austin, working with the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory and the Scripps Institution of Oceanography, has built what might be the most impressive example of AI in science. They created a digital twin of the Cascadia subduction zone. This is supposed to be one of the most dangerous earthquake zones in North America. And this model can forecast a tsunami in a fraction of a second. That's a 10 billion fold speed up over the previous best methods.
Wow.
So, yeah, so this is in the realm of how AI has been used for providing an alternate method of modeling for weather patterns, right? So, a big one was AI in weather prediction, particularly like tornado watch, right? Which tornadoes sweep in almost every year through central United States and cause tons and tons of damage and loss of life and things like that. People have adapted to it, and one of the things in the legacy method was that you'd get a few minutes warning. With the AI, that introduced up to like 15 or 20 minutes or even 30 minutes of warning, depending on the zone and scale and things like that. So this is sort of in that same vein. Now, the Cascadia subduction zone stretches roughly 700 miles along the Pacific Northwest coast from northern California up to British Columbia. The last major earthquake there was in 1700. Seismologists estimate that there is a 37% probability of a magnitude 8 plus earthquake in the next 50 years. When it hits, coastal communities may have as little as 15 minutes before a tsunami reaches shore. Current tsunami forecasting methods are too slow to be useful in real time. The computational work required to model an earthquake deforms in the ocean floor and predicting the resulting wave propagation would take roughly 50 years of supercomputing time using the traditional approaches. That means by the time you have an answer, everyone's in trouble already. Now, the team built this digital twin, a living computational model of the Cascade subduction zone that ingests real-time pressure sensor data from the seafloor and runs a physics-based simulation to predict tsunami wave heights and arrival times. So this, what this allows is that this AI is, number one, physics informed. It's not like the standard AI that we use, which is pattern matching. So this is how it's different than our LLMs and things like that. Researcher Omar Gattas put it as AI. This differs from commercial AI because it does more than just find patterns. It reflects the laws of nature. The model uses a 3D coupled acoustic gravity wave equation to simulate the actual ocean physics. This AI also uses real-time Bayesian inference. So the system uses a novel GPU-accelerated algorithm to solve what is called a Bayesian inverse problem. Essentially, it works backwards from sensor data to figure out what the earthquake did to the ocean floor, then projects forward to predict wave behavior. And this is all under a second, right? It's the speed here is the big takeaway, right? Well, for how it'll impact the people living in the area. The AI also uses a two-phase architecture. There's an offline phase where the massive supercomputers, using the supercomputer El Capitan, pre-compute the mathematical representations. Then the online phase can issue real-time forecasts using much smaller GPU clusters when an actual earthquake strikes. So what's nice about that is the heavy lifting is done with the appropriate hardware, and then you can have smaller teams spin up when the actual event happens. And they've also built in an uncertainty quantification. The forecasts don't just give a number, they include probabilistic ranges, so emergency managers know how confident the prediction is. So The result is a forecast that previously required 50 years of supercomputing power and now can complete it in fraction of a second.
Mm-hmm.
So also another note of how important or valued this work is being considered is it won the 2025 ACM Gordon Bell Prize, which is sometimes compared to the Nobel Prize of supercomputing. So,
yeah, and
yeah,
it basically sounds like it's a similar result from the kill web story in the earlier part, right? Multiple sensors being able to be processed much faster. And in this context, saving lives, which personally I think maybe better use case.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, and one of the things that's popped out about the story is because of what it studied, which was the Cascadia subduction zone, which is the Pacific Northwest, which is, you know, I happen to reside in that area, so it'd be really cool to know if there was a tsunami coming my way. But I digress. So a couple of why it matters, right?
Mhm.
So the framework of how this works, like you pointed out towards the earlier story, but this framework also can be applied to other forms of early warning or calamity or catastrophe type events, like I mentioned with the tornado mapping. Number one, it could be applied to real-time wildfire tracking, right? Predicting fire spread from the various sensor data. It can help with subsurface contaminant tracking, modeling underground pollution movement, right? This might be really, really good for how we track and analyze all of the dump sites and, you know, make sure it doesn't get into the groundwater and, you know, or the water table and things like that. This could be applied to space weather forecasting, so predicting solar storms. And I know that's been in the news for the last couple of months because this year is they expect a lot more solar activity during this year and the next coming years. Nuclear reactor digital twins, right? So the UT Austin is actually already, based off of this research, already building these digital twins of for nuclear reactors, accelerating reactor innovation timelines. Combine that with some of the small form reactors. Andy likes to bring these up as a possible alternative energy, sustainable energy kind of thing, because you know they're only the size of a truck, right? Like a semi, which is remarkably smaller and safer. But being able to have a digital twin of a nuclear reactor and being able to model that out and test out scenarios. So hopefully we can see tons of innovation along energy development, things like that. And then semiconductor process optimization. So digital twins for national defense chip manufacturing. Essentially, this is all research in digital twin uses, right? So here is a real world application of what a digital twin can do. We've talked about digital twins. We've talked about one-to-one models, you know, in the supercomputer or supercomputing environments and things like that. And so this is one more block or one more brick in that process, where our foundation, so that we can really start scaling up and seeing how well it'll help us in speed of innovation and speed of application. Now, one of the things I like to do is also, if we can take a future look, right? So one of the future look kinds of things. So this is AI. So, you know, I don't really want to look early or further along than maybe 12 months. So many things can change in 12 months in AI, right?
12 is a risk. Go.
Yeah, I know. So, future outlook here, 6 to 12 months here, possible, possible applications of this story or of this technology. One of those things could be the Horizon supercomputer, which is set to come out in the spring of 2026. So that it'll enable richer physics simulations and more complex digital twins. The Cascadia digital twin could become the blueprint for global real-time tsunami warning network, which I think would even make it more accurate and faster responding. Because remember, this is sort of like here's the supercomputer does the meat and potatoes, and then the sensor data gives us the real-time reaction, right? So we do have a disjointed group of different sensors, and this is maybe a reinvigoration back into NOAA, because this is kind of where they lived with that, to build a stronger network globally, so we could track tsunamis globally. So the digital twin approach is already expanding into healthcare, patient-specific drug response modeling, climate science, and energy infrastructure. This also goes back to that earlier story I had about the fine-tuning models for human psychology and personality matrix. So that could be tied in along those, or to provide better healthcare on an individual basis. And of course, this is identifying that any bottleneck to this innovation isn't the compute side, it's the data. Expanding seafloor sensor networks and real-time data pipelines is where the investment needs to go. So, Cascadia, subduction zone, tsunami, digital twins, AI and science outside of LLMs and your day-to-day chat bot like ChatGPT. This is, I think, where those science innovations seem to be going. So
yeah.
So we keep an eye on.
I'm remembering a story about Thales, the chip designer.
Mm-hmm.
It describes its approach as transforming an AI model into custom silicon in about 2 months. So the model is the computer because it's hard coded on their chip, and their chip is the HC1. Like, think about how much faster, how much more faster you could get if the analysis that you're doing is actually a part of what is hard coded on your thing. Like, we're getting just in time information, and could we shave seconds off that or something? Like, I find the story about increasing the sensors, increasing the ability to analyze it and the speed of that, and then also being able to make that like get rid of all of the extraneous things that are part of the process if you're processing with a large language model, like a AGI-ish large language model, and just doing super specific. Like, that could be amazing, because now you have all of that. It's a supercomputer, and I'm sure it's a supercomputer, right? Like, are we now at a point where we can shrink it down and now it's like a supercomputer? Well, for people who are listening, I'm like making big gestures with my hands and a little gesture with my hands, because when we talk about edge AI, as I know Jyunmi and I are both really excited about, we are generally talking about things that get smaller as they get to the edge.
Right. Exactly. Things that doesn't take as much surface area, it needs less power, and can run instantly and kind of forever. Speaking to that, the latest, and when I say latest, I'm talking 12 months here. Latest innovations with graphene is what's kind of making these sensors available, and we're talking the size of a potato chip. Open up a bag of Lay's, pull out a potato chip. This is how big these things are. So that means it can be integrated in more devices. This is talking towards the edge AI. This is talking towards the single board computing side of things. And because they're getting that small, and because you can add sensor packages, and because you can have models that can form digital twins of, whether they be macro size things like a tsunami or weather patterns, or micro, when it comes down to an individual or individual personalities and things like that, we're going to see more embodied AI. We're going to see more interactions of ourselves reflected in embodied AI and how that interacts. So more questions about the what does it mean to be human, and maybe we will be better ourselves.
Yeah.
So that's all the info that I have. I mean, we could spend the next hour just looking up stories to talk about more stuff. I mean, I've got a couple of chip stories about like this one company that has found a way to write a chip sort of similar to like ASICs, where they write the model into the chip design. So they're very model specific, but then you can get something like 10,000 tokens a second out of it,
Right.
which is, a ridiculously high number and things like that. But these are all the handful of smaller stories that are floating around the internet.
Yep. I will see that, and then we can get to closing the show if you want. I know you want to ask what folks are doing in the chat, and I'm very excited to hear their responses. It reminds me of the Quen drop of the smaller models that just happened last week, and the 0.2 billion, 0.2 byte, many B words. Beth, I don't know. 0.2 Beth, yes. That can run in Olama on an iPhone. They were saying iPhone 17. I have iPhone 15. I don't know if that's if like 17 is super better more than my iPhone 15, but like edge device is coming closer and closer to our pockets, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think I was just looking at tangentially, I was looking at a new phone for its camera to replace the one that I'm using.
Yes.
And when the camera capabilities are more important, your phone choices actually widen. So looking at an older model or used model or refurbished model is far more viable than investing in something like a mirrorless or DSLR camera and things like that. So apparently I can get like a Pixel 7 with a 50 megapixel camera for $300. Though I am looking at an iPhone 15 Pro Max because it's got the USB recording built into it or whatever. Plus, also, isn't that the model that Apple said, "Oh, this is the model that has the chip that can run the all of the greatest AI stuff that we're going to be coming out with"? But
yes, but then they didn't come out with any of the greatest stuff. So
yeah, we'll see. And then I hear that OpenClaw can pretty much run on anything that with an M1, and I'm like, oh, has anyone come out with a version for an iPad? Because I got an iPad that has an M1 in it. Could I run OpenClaw on an iPad?
That's interesting.
Right?
I have an M2 Pro iPad.
Like, if Droid Claw exists for an Android phone, couldn't there just be an iPad version at like near full capabilities?
Gareth has it and is disappointed. I'm like, you have the Pixel, you have the 17. Like, what is it?
Which one are you talking about, Gareth? You're probably talking about the 15 Pro Max, aren't you?
My Droid Claws have arrived. My phones for my Droid Claws have arrived, but I have not had time to set them up yet. So we'll see. And those are A52 Galaxy.
Gotcha. And is that a newer model or a slightly older model? Or
That's an older model. I don't know what they are, what number they're on now. I got it back market. The recommendation that I was seeing was to get the A51, but the A52 actually has a higher base RAM, so it has 6 megapixels, 6
that's
M,
the key. RAM.
and so it should. Droid Cloud doesn't need very much. Gareth says 15 Pro Max. Yeah, that's what I have to. And I was disappointed enough to not need to upgrade to any of the other Pro situations yet. When I upgrade, it will be another big phone. But yeah, I'm really excited about Droid Claw, specifically because the Droid Claw agentic work is like operating your phone. So it's not like I've given something like OpenClaw or something like that permission to just go out and do its own thing everywhere. I've given Droid Claw permission and instructions to do its thing on this phone, right?
Gotcha.
So
gotcha. Yeah, I guess that is what I'm kind of looking for, is a complete OpenClaw that functions on an iPad with an M1 chip, because I think it also has 16 gigs of memory on there too, instead of using like a Mac Mini, right, to run it, because that seems to be the super popular thing. So maybe there's some hardware limitations.
The Mac Minis are apparently sold out in New York City and San Francisco. They are not sold out in DC, which does not actually surprised me very much. And the M5 MacBooks dropped, were announced yesterday. They haven't dropped. Sales they go on sale today. I think pre-sales. Go get yours now if you want.
I am interested in the new Studio.
Yeah,
M5 Ultra with a terabyte. That's what I'm looking for.
The Studios didn't drop, and neither did the Mac Minis, which is why I was looking like, hey, we still have Mac Minis, M4 Mac Minis, and if you're going to drop the price, I would really love to know that.
That's true. And also, if you're interested in arbitrage, apparently DC has a supply, and San Francisco and New York needs a supply. So if you're into that, take a look. Okay.
All right.
Before we just talk for another hour about tech and other fun stuff.
I miss you.
I know I can. Well, I mean, okay, I won't digress too much, but the new Mac Studios M5 Ultra with a terabyte of RAM in there, that's an entire model.
Yep.
That is a entire full-blown model, no quant, no, compression or anything like that. And that kind of feeds into this concept of the self-hosted and running my own thing. And, DeepSeek V4 is coming out. That's open source. Give that a shot. Well, it's full multimodal. Can I run that whole thing on that one piece of hardware? And with RAM as expensive as it is, it's no longer a given that you don't buy the RAM from Apple when you buy a new Mac.
Right.
So, hey, that's probably the cost now.
Yeah. Well, and it's
expensive.
But the M5 will be more expensive, right?
Well,
the M5 with 1 terabyte.
It's like car models, right? There'll probably be a little premium right at the beginning, but it will be the price, right? Because they set the price point and just put in the new version in there. So if it costs 10 grand to get a souped up M4 right now, then it'll cost 10 grand. So
okay, I think it's going to be more, but even if it were twice as much, right? The OpenAI agent that I don't know if it's out or if it's just been talked about for $20K, right? So are you willing to spend $20K for an agent that can do all of these things? And in terms of like an employee price, Yes, maybe. And now we look at that, even if it's 20K, does this equal your ability to completely have a very, very capable colleague in a little silver box? Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, it's sort of one of the concepts of it, and I guess this is the question. This is the great time to ask the question: is what is the story or project that has grabbed your interest, or something that you're working on? So everybody in chat, please let us know what you're currently working on. Beth, I want to hear what you're working on. But I'll just drop what I've been kind of looking at is developing along the concept of the solopreneur slash $1 billion company, single person company kind of thing. And what does that really need in terms of what does the landscape need to look like? And this kind of goes towards you're a single person, but you have your team of AI, right? And you're either you're creating results, you're creating the output, you're creating whatever the thing that other companies need and whatnot, but you're bringing your flavor of AI. You're bringing your insight that you put into your agents, your thought processes and things like that. What you're able to invest from your expertise or your style or what is you to your team of AI, so that you can. That's the thing that you're selling, is like, oh yeah, I can help you out with that. I'll bring my team of super high focused, we look at things this way, kind of AI team, and create the result for you. So what is the larger landscape and infrastructure of to make that a reality, because I think that's probably a better reality than conglomerating all of the compute and as a foundation layer to what the economy is built off of. You're going to have 7 companies out there that have all the compute that is providing all of the knowledge, work, and intelligence to perform the work of what some of the smaller companies are built on. It's really good news for those 7 companies, but other than that, then that's where it all funnels down to, because they're the ones with all the compute. And if you only need compute to do everything that exists, then who wins? Whoever's at
all right.
there. So
we got to wrap up this conversation, but sure. And I will go more into this tomorrow because we really need to wrap up the conversation. But there was a research paper that dropped. Actually, I may be conflating 2 things, but the stat is that the idea that AI is going to take all the jobs is so overweighted toward jobs that can be measured, right? And the number of the amount of work that humans do as a job that can't be measured in this kind of way and isn't in benchmarks and isn't in those kinds of things. It's not, right? Like, it can't do all the jobs.
Right.
It can't do a bunch of the jobs. And there's another stat that I saw that said by 2028, 2029, the jobs created should now grow above the jobs lost. But of course, that's a longer conversation too, because what's the kind of jobs you're creating versus what are the kind of jobs that you're losing? But,
gotcha.
All right.
Okay. Let's highlight real quick. Gareth popped in and said he's working on his Jarvis again, using OpenClaw as a base, which sounds awesome.
Yeah.
And opening up with a developer friend, which is awesome because that's going to provide you a lot of development insight, especially when it's like, oh, we might want to close this security hole. And,
right.
and those kinds of things.
And it's so interesting. I think my trajectory from GitHub In fact, I think I had a conversation with you, Jyunmi, maybe 18 months ago of like, could you just walk through GitHub with me and tell me what it is? And you were like, sort of. I think maybe, I know I need a more specific question, Beth, right? Like, what do you mean what GitHub is? But the ability of the agents now, or the AIs now, to not only explain that but use it with you, that's a game changer for me. So if you
Absolutely.
haven't looked at GitHub, and the reason I'm saying that is OpenClaw is actually an open repo on GitHub. I don't know if it is. It must still be, Gareth, right? Because you're using it.
No, it is. It
okay.
is. Yeah.
So what they're doing now with OpenAI, no, he wanted it all to be open source also. So
Well,
maybe it's that kind
he
of thing.
said a foundation specifically created to maintain and develop OpenClaw as an open source resource.
Great.
What Peter does with OpenAI, that we don't know. We'll probably see a version of OpenClaw integrated into OpenAI, but probably a couple months.
So much of the things that we want to do on a computer have a repo, an open repo on GitHub, right? Like there's so much, and that used to feel like really closed off for me. Like that's too complicated. And I swear to God, ChatGPT used to say, you should be talking to a developer if you are asking these questions. And I'm like, I am. What the hell?
Right. That becomes context and framing, right? Because it's like, yes, I'm talking to you so that you will teach me what I need to know. So anytime you're in that spot where you're expecting me to know, don't expect to have to be able to teach me everything from 0 to 1 on that process. It
because
may take
you
longer,
can.
but that's okay.
Right. So I just wanted to say, if you also have felt a little scared of GitHub, pick your favorite AI and maybe go and check some stuff out, because that's really great.
And remember, GitHub is, while the most popular, there are other versions.
So yes, there are other
like
repo
and
things.
Yeah, GitLab and all those others as well. But that's probably an easy way to really to dip your toe. All right, Beth, was there a particular project you wanted to highlight before we wrap up?
Yes, I am also playing with open repo on GitHub. I've talked about it on the show before. It is Compound Engineering, and it's from Every. Every.to is their website. Every Inc. is their company. Another, like, wow, did you pick a name that's really hard to tell people about you? Like, everyone, just every, yep. They have Kieran Clausen created a plugin called Compound Engineering that is for building software in a way that compounds the learning. So each time you run it again, it takes advantage of the learning of the last feature you built, of the last piece that you built for the software. And I am using that to create and inform what I am referring to as my colleague layer of working with Claude Code. So there's a whole thing about how I like to work, how, like, the ways that I want to be engaged with. It is, for me, easier than what's going around like, hey, build your context, just answer 425 questions, and then give this file to your person, right? To your person, to your AI person who needs to know it. That's less helpful for me. And basically looks at people as being more self-aware than they are, right? Like, I am certain that how Beth wants to be worked with is different than what I would say up front. And because it's being continually updated and informed based on actual, like, that didn't work for me, this did work for me, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's I think so important, and particularly in moving towards doing more agentic work.
I nail hit the nail on the head with that one, because that step is, I think, what is automatically assumed, right? And I think that's where a lot of people build up frustration, is you got to go through the step of figuring out, one, make yourself aware, and number two, take that awareness and make the AI aware of it, because
Right.
everyone is different on how they communicate and how they function best. And what is efficient for one person is not efficient for someone else. So that personalization is really where you're going to get the most bang for your buck as it builds up. And with AI, I think what most people realize, and this could be my own assumption, is that the more overhead or work that you put in on the front end, it's just going to be faster and easier and simpler and more output and more productivity for you on the back end. So put in the extra 20 hours of interview me, find out who I am. That kind of stuff is going to be more valuable to you in the long run.
It is, but I think what I'm getting, I'm not asking it to interview me about how I like to be worked with. We are working together, and then there is an intentional layer that I've called the colleague layer. Let's review the colleague conversation, or let's review this session based on the colleague things. Are there learnings that we want to take into and compound so that it informs the next thing? Because the idea behind compound engineering is that everything that you do is learned from, so the next time it's easier to do. And that is how I want my AI to be, for sure.
All right, everybody, compound engineering. That's the new one. All right.
And if you're interested in what I'm saying about the colleague layer, reach out. I would love to hear from you. I'm in the community Slack, the Daily AI Show community.com, and I will even bring it up. And we should stop talking, Jyunmi.
All right. Perfect segue. Okay. So, of course, everyone who stuck around with us for this probably longest show ever, thank you so much for joining us in the chat. And like Beth said, if you want to continue the conversation or bring up new ones, do join our community at dailyaishowcommunity.com. And for those who can't join us or are watching this a little later, thank you so much. And I'll close out by saying, remember to keep your minds open and your hearts open. Oh, and make sure to click the things that make the dings. Aloha, everybody. Bye.
Thanks.